If you're watching this just for the idle air control valve, then skip to the timestamp on screen now. If not, then please enjoy the rest. This is a mid-edit here. This is everything that I've collected that I want to share, except in the beginning of the video, I'm reading it like it's some creepypasta script. There wasn't. I do have my Google Doc script that will also be the description of the video, but I just don't have a lot of confidence in the beginning of the video, and I did want to address that. This is a little cringe of me, but I eventually like gain more confidence in what I want to say, and I get off script and just explain what I know. But I'll still put the script in the description. Thank you for watching me being completely cringe to myself for, I don't even know how long this will be, like 20 minutes-ish? 20, 30 minutes? Enjoy. This is an idle air control valve that I got from a Toyota Celica from my local junkyard. To get the actual motor part off, you do need a 5-point star 20-bit to take these screws off. And to actually fit this tool on your ratcheting wrench, you will need this Craftsman, looks like 43493. Don't know if you can see the part number there. It's a 1/4 quarter-inch bit to quarter-inch drive. I got this from Ace Hardware for like $2. And it's not magnetic, but you just take the entire assembly, these two screws off like this. And to even get the valve off of the throttle body, there are these 3 screws that kind of strip very easily, but what I found out is this heart screwdriver from, I got this from Walmart with a flathead one for $5, and it just perfectly lines up with the screw, and this is what I used to break it free. This is also a magnetic tip, so it's nice. So invest in these $5 heart screwdrivers. These are good for exactly this purpose. Once you get the screws out, this piece just comes off. It's magnetic, or at least this part of it's magnetic, so it's difficult to do with just one hand. But this is the motor part of it. On the inside here, this actual, like, inside the motor. Can I turn on the light? Let me turn on the flashlight. Zoom in, flashlight. There is this little shape here that has to correspond with this piece. This is like a little, I'm gonna call it a fork, but there is this spinning bit that closes and opens this door on the inside. And this has, whenever you put this in the car, this end has to be facing up whenever you're putting the motor back in. So that way it aligns correctly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this entire thing with a, let me zoom out, with carb cleaner, because this has a lot of leftover green disgusting coolant in it and a lot of carbon buildup. And this is also on some bearings. If you're going to clean your idle air control valve, get the correct screwdriver, get the correct, oh here it is. The Torx Plus thing here, I'll have a link in the description. I got these from Amazon. But get these things out where you can actually take this thing fully apart and clean it out. That video I linked in my other video, whenever I was cleaning this out, I linked the tutorial I was following. He actually opened this up and cleaned it out with carb cleaner. I'm going to do just that. And the reason I'm even doing this with a separate idle air control valve instead of the one that's currently on my car, that thing right there, is because I believe that on my car the motor itself is what's bad, is what I think at least, because I cleaned out the wheel part but I never cleaned out the motor part. I don't know, my motor may still be alright, but I just thought I might as well use this one, because why not? So it's possible to replace just this valve piece, or just this motor piece, without the sliding door, which I think in my case this is not what I was planning to do. I think this is what I'm going to have to do now, because this, like, it moves a little more freely, but there's still sometimes it feels like it gets caught up. And also I can't get this, I can't get this out. This is kind of gross on the inside, and that's all the old coolant that was in there. I can't get that out, not with what I have. So I'm probably going to just replace this part on my car, which I can do. As long as this motor faces up on the throttle body and it spins freely enough, then I can replace just the motor. Now keep in mind, the one of this on my car, it does not look like this. It looks a lot better, and I did clean this out, so it should be fine. That's why I'm confident. I don't know if this has been done before. I'm going to attempt to replace just the motor part on the idler control valve. As previously stated in the video, get your ratchet with your funny Craftsman drive here, which will be linked in the description, and then this will also be linked in the description. And this is not magnetic, so be careful. Don't forget to actually unplug this valve. I'm not going to unplug the battery, just this right now, if I can. Then you get your ratchet in there and break it loose, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. There isn't much wiggle room here, so this is the best I could do with the ratcheting wrench, just have it downward while loosening with my finger. But it was a little easy to break loose. It would be easier to take off the airbox while doing this, but it's definitely possible without doing so. I'm just going to unscrew these two bits here. And then it'll just come out, but be careful on which way the fork piece is facing. Really magnetic here. Fork piece is facing up, so I'm going to keep it facing up. And the O-ring stayed in there actually. Here's the old O-ring. It doesn't actually look that bad. The other one was bad though, so old O-ring, old part on the left, and I don't have the new O-ring with me since it's bad, so I'm going to reuse that one. But I also want to make sure that this freely spins. If not, then I actually got to replace it. Oh, okay, so this piece is just bad. This piece does not freely spin. Okay, it spins worse than the other one actually. Here's the old one. This one like spins with like no resistance basically. This one, if I could even, has a lot of resistance to it. Like I'm putting a little bit of force into these spins, so I want to try some carb cleaner on I know there's two bearings in there, but if I could just get one of them loose, that would be great. And then I may have to re-grease it, or not re-grease it, re-oil it. So if anything, I'll use engine oil to oil that small skateboard bearing. Oh no, it's not a skateboard bearing, it's a ball bearing. I will think of something though, but I mean, this one any bad? This one actually, let me drop the O-ring real quick in a safe spot, and then can you see that? There's crud in the old one. It's easier to see on camera. This motor may still work, honestly. It's just a little dirty, and then my actual valve is stuck closed. Carbon throttle body cleaner with the straw attachment. I think I may need to do this with two hands. I don't know if I could reach it just like this, but I'm going to lightly spray the bearing there with it, and then see if it freely spins, and then add some engine oil, and you'll see how I do that. So like I had the can upside down with the straw in there, just like on the ball bearing past it's not gonna be easy to see this on camera at all. Right there. Had it right there, can upside down, that's the best way I could reach it. Sprayed a little bit in there, spun it, sprayed a little bit in there again. And now watch it. Spins so much more freely. I didn't even have to get to the backwards. The ball bearing on the inside, I didn't even have to get to that, which means I don't have to mess with the cooling system again. Hopefully. Yeah, good to see that the shifter cable bushing is still doing nicely. For the next part of the plan, I'm going to get some of the engine oil out. My oil's at a little bit above 100%, that's nice. I'm going to put some on my fingertip, and then, or maybe even a Q-tip would work better. I'm going to put some on a Q-tip and then just very lightly coat the outside of the bearing and spin it, and then see what happens. Before you attempt to do what I do, be careful with Q-tips, because, I don't know, it's hard to catch it on camera, but there's a lot of the tiny Q-tip strands coming off, because it's not a perfect, it's a fluffy thing. So I'm going to scoop some off of the engine oil dipstick, and I'm going to make sure that there are no strands on the dipstick. If not, then I'll wipe it off appropriately. And then I'm going to put the Q-tip in this spot right here and spin the bearing. Right there. A Q-tip heavily saturated in engine oil, put into the ball bearing here and just spun around a lot. lubed it up quite nicely, honestly. Let me see if I can get a good look on that. Spins a lot more freely. Cause like, whenever I cleaned it out, I cleaned out all the carbon deposits. It's just these bearings were not so clean, so it was making the valve get stuck. I'm just spinning this up a lot just to make sure it does get greased. Oh, sorry for the bad camera angle. If the method with the Q-tip didn't work, I had a secondary plan. Red and tacky grease on a Q-tip, and then just like, bam. That was my plan. Was the grease gun, but it seems like the heavily saturated Q-tip, which people actually do have Q-tips for like $3 at the store for however many you want, and then saturate it with engine oil and then grease up the bearing. Keep in mind that this is the easy way to clean this thing. The harder way would be to what I already did, but at least this is definitely way easier. This is the ratchet, the tools thingy. This piece with the other Torx bits was $10. This was, I think, $3 to $5. This, however much your junkyard pays for it. To reinstall, make sure you have the O-ring you want to use, and I'm actually giving this a very light coat of oil. It doesn't need to be lubricated, but just to keep all the dirt and debris out of the motor itself. So I took that same Q-tip and gave it a light coat of oil around the edge. And then we're gonna slide it back. There's a little groove, a circular groove around it. I don't know if you can see that. Can I turn the flashlight on? Yeah, you can see the circular groove now. It's hard to stretch this over. Alright, the way I did it, I took my... let me unzoom. Took my arm around the coolant to get my hand underneath everything. Ow, I just took the O-ring out by mistake. And I fed it upward. Like so. I'm bad at this. Oh jeez. There we go. It's in there, kind of. If it's not broken, don't fix it. The cable for the throttle body is what gets in the way there, so you can't feed it in from top. You have to feed it in from below. Very important. Make sure this fork piece spins freely, but then also it faces upward. This little fork that peeks out of the thing, the part that's on the tip of my thumb. Make sure it faces upward. Also, I'm pretty sure it only goes in one way. And then take your, what I'm going to call new valve, even though I cleaned it, which this one probably does work too. Wouldn't deny that. And it gets fed in like this, cord plug facing to the left, and then it's magnetic, so be careful. I got to do this from underneath again. Get into the hole. It's magnetic, so it goes in there easily. And then this I'm going to do with maybe one hand. I don't know. Let me see if I can do this on camera. Gotta feed the screws into the screw holes. That's one. This one I may be able to get from above. Kinda. Yep. Just get those screws in the screw holes and then tighten them up. They don't have a torque spec, but they didn't take a lot to break loose, so I'm just gonna snug them as much as I can with the angle I have. Make sure you don't cross thread it. Usually I reverse thread these things before regularly threading them, but I don't think I can in this case. Or I could, I just don't want to. But they're threading in nicely, so I know they're not cross threaded. And just snug it up real nice on both sides. Don't know why Toyota designed it like this, but they did. Because of the shape of the inside of the motor, I'm pretty sure this only goes on one way. But yeah, that door was just stuck open and closed all the time, so my idle would just go down and then go up and then go down and go up. Once the left and rights are as snug as you can make them, you gotta plug the sensor back in until it clicks. And I did not actually unplug my battery during this. I didn't really want to. Cold start, I think it's like 60, 65 Fahrenheit out. It evened out the idle really well, actually. What the heck? that bearing was really stuck in there. I'll have to deal with some test driving. As far as I'm aware, the new idle air motor works, and that bearing door slides a lot easier, so let's see how it will do in the meantime. As for the old parts, I'm just gonna put this back together real quick. The valve from the other Celica and the motor from my car, I'm just gonna keep this as one assembly, as it's always nice to have spare parts for any reason. And if that doesn't fix my idle, my next guess is to test the mass airflow sensor, which I could do right now, but it's a little cold out and I don't want to do that on a cold start. I'd rather do that whenever my engine's hot, so I'll do that later on. So here's what's happening. When I didn't unplug the battery, I probably should have, but my guess is that the system thinks it's still in the... I should have unplugged the battery, because right now I don't think the car knows that I changed out the part. So the door was stuck closed, the little bearing door, so it thinks that the bearing door is still stuck closed, but in reality it's not. So it's giving it those actions that it was trying to do, and now it just keeps on over revving. Since the car thinks the door is closed and keeps on over revving, I just gotta reset the battery, that's all. 78 degrees outside, cold start, battery disconnected for like 4.5 hours because I was at work. It does not want to cold start. It almost doesn't even want to idle. So like once it heats up, it idles nearly perfectly. Let me turn AC was off. Let me turn AC on. Idles kind of near perfectly. Doesn't do the stuttering down to stalling out anymore, because it was stuck open, stuck closed, stuck open, stuck closed is what it was doing. But it just didn't cold start, and I gotta find out why. I don't know why, but this idler control valve is stuck closed. Like stuck. Like I can't even move it with my fingers. I don't know if it's locked up or it's not locked, but it is definitely stuck. So my options are either clean all the gunk out of this one and use this one, and either way I'm gonna have to probably take that one off. But there is another Celica that appeared at my local KQ, so I may have to go raid that for another. Also, I destroyed this O-ring right here with the carb cleaner. I destroyed it, so that's garbage. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do, because now my idle control valve is just stuck shut. I had the bearing stuck, so idea number 2. I took the carb cleaner, and this time I'm actually gonna use the grease gun. So now it spins freely, because it was that bearing that I had stuck. So what I'm gonna do, just gonna get a weeny bit, and take just a tiny bit of red grease. If this doesn't work, then I'm just gonna replace the entire thing, but I might as well fix it if it's just this one bearing that needs to be greased up. I don't need that much. I stuck the Q-tip in there with the red grease applied, and I just went at the wheel. It was just that bearing that was stuck, so now this spins a lot more freely, and let's hope that this is a more permanent fix. Then the engine oil didn't work. I thought that would be a little better, but I wanted to do this originally. Just look at that. Now it spins. Now it's not stuck. I re-greased the bearing door with the red and tacky grease. I tightened as much as I could. I put the battery back in. I plugged it back in. Now let's check. Wonder what the light's for. So the code there is for the idle control system, P0505. I never thought it had that code before, but like it's idling. This is the most perfect it's ever idled, like ever. It's never idled better than this, so I don't know why that code's there. I'm a little bit stupid. I forgot to plug the valve back in. That's why the light was on. I mean, it's plugged in. Is the motor bad? Because the door spins. Is the valve motor bad, maybe? I put some grease on the old motor and put the old one in there, the original one, and it seems more promising. So when I put some grease on the bearing and spun it spun nicely, but the moment I put this valve back on to the moment I put the motor back onto the valve, it just clogged up the wheel again. So this time, this is the one from the junkyard Celica. I put my original one on there, but except I put some red grease on the middle, not the middle, the inner circle here, because on the tip of my finger, that's what presses against the bearing. So I put some grease on there, plugged it back in, and this is looking promising. So there's definitely a correct way to do this, and this is the way I did it. I grease on the thing, grease on the motor, since the motor presses against the bearing, just like whenever you torque down your wheel bearing, except I put grease on it. I torque it down and spec, and this is the most promising my idle has ever been. Oh my goodness. If you want to hear what else I have to yap about, then continue along. All of the information I'm about to provide is going to be from my personal experience, and I will also be reading a script through this because that's how I feel comfortable presenting the information I've collected. I put this script in a Google Doc, and it will also be in the description so that way you could read if you need to instead of listening to me ramble on. Before this video begins, I'm going to be referring to my 2000 Toyota Celica GT, which is also a manual transmission vehicle. This should apply to all other 7th gen Celicas and other vehicles with the 1ZZ and 2ZZ GE engines. And before you buy any parts or do any work to your car, confirm that those parts fit your specific vehicle. The information I've collected is from my own personal experience. You can choose whatever parts you want for your vehicle. I am only here to recommend what I've learned. This doohickey here is the idler control valve from a Toyota Celica GT. I'm pretty sure both the ones with manual and automatic transmissions have the same one, so it doesn't make much of a difference. We have two parts here. This is the valve that actually connects to the throttle body itself. It has this little ball bearing door that I could spin with this hand. It goes 360, but I could get the camera in there. It opens and closes a little door mechanism in there. This can get stuck closed due to carbon deposits, and it is not really too fun to clean. When I made my video on how to replace it, I ended up following this guy's tutorial, this one with the RAV4 here.
Likely not clean.
This is a good video right here. This is basically what I followed. Even though it's on a RAV4, the throttle body and idler control valve are very, very similar. Like, yeah, the design's a little bit different here on the inside, but both pieces have the magnetic ball bearing door with the little, I'm going to call a fork piece in there. And both also have the coolant passages through. When I made my video on this, there's something I missed. I never actually took the motor off of the valve to clean it out entirely, which even then the motor doesn't really fail that often, but if you do plan on taking the motor off, then the actual correct tools, which I'll have linked in the description, these 5-point star Torx bits, the T21 to be specific, fits directly onto the screw. And to even drop the screw, but whatever. To even hold this a bit on your ratchet, I have this 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch, I think SAE. I'll have this linked in the description too. I got this from Ace Hardware. It fits in there perfectly, though it's not magnetic, but it did help me get the valve off. This piece is also like highly magnetic. If I could demonstrate. Don't know if you can hear that. It's magnetic. It's a strong magnet too. And this little fork piece actually only fits in one way. You can see the shape inside the motor here. The orange piece is a little bit further back, and the little black piece there actually spins around. And then it does go in like one way, but try to face it as far up as you can. That way that position also has the sliding door closed. I don't know if I'm going to put the part before or after me yapping here, but on my car currently I have the original valve and the original motor on there, but I cleaned out the ball bearing here with carb cleaner, and then I put a lot of red tacky grease on there. I have it shown in the video, and the little inner circle here actually clamps onto the bearing like you would torque down I think a CV axle is what I'm going to refer to. It's kind of works in that sense, or at least to me. There's also this O-ring on here, which I destroyed the other O-ring by mistake. O-ring fits around. If you do want to take the easy route of what I did to clean the idler control valve and just take this motor piece off and clean that bearing, you can. But if you've never cleaned it before, I would recommend taking it apart and following that RAV4 video because that was very helpful. Sorry for the bright light. This is an image I got from a random eBay listing on an idle air control valve for the Celica. This one on eBay is roughly 50 bucks. I bought one a little while ago for 30 and I took it apart to see if I could make two good ones out of two bad ones, a good one out of two bad ones. Jeez, I'm bad at this. But whenever I took it apart, what I found out is that the magnet for both of these pieces here is not very strong on these aftermarket ones, and the screws are not the same to hold it in place, and this little fork piece that actually like physically allows it to move around because it gets pushed into different directions. This fork piece is not there on the aftermarket ones. And I saw one person ever in the Facebook group, which I will also link in the description. They bought this and they just installed the valve itself, and it'll work to an extent, or at least they said it worked for them. I haven't had any testing on that. It'll probably control itself via the magnet, but if you even want to replace it, then I would just your cheapest option would be to buy an entire throttle body assembly or get one from your local junkyard. They aren't too expensive. I forgot to mention that whenever this guy was taking the idler control valve off of his throttle body, he kind of stripped the screws originally, and what I found to actually not do that is this specific screwdriver from I got this one along with this one from Walmart, both of these for $5. This was the perfect fit with the original screw, like very, very, very perfect fit to just to loosen it up without stripping it. So if you happen to see this at Walmart, I'll try to find this one online. This is the perfect screwdriver for this. I swear, it was so nice to break it loose in like one. You get what I mean? Like, as I was saying before, though, I don't see any actual reason you'd have to replace this. Like, the only way I found that the motor would go bad itself is whenever I had it unplugged, which you'll see in the other video, or I think at the beginning of this video, I'll put it at. I had to check engine light for I think it was P0505. It said idle air control system. I forgot to plug in the motor, and that's when it gave me a code. And I think that's the only way. If the motor is bad, it'll probably give you that code as well. So there's probably no way that this could go bad, especially how enclosed it is. Like even through the opening port here, it's still very enclosed in there and has grease, and you'd clean it out with a carbon cleaner, unless the wire is damaged, maybe, but not really. So my point being, I don't see a real reason you'd have to replace this entire thing. Just cleaning it out correctly should fix the whatever idle issues you have. And on my car, like I said, I have the ball bearing lubricated with some red tacky grease, which I am going to experiment with that. That's how I decided to repair it. If I need to replace it, which I do have this obviously spare one, that this one spins kind of freely, and there's just some very old coolant that's caught up in here. It's a little gross. I could clean that out. If the red tacky grease doesn't work, then I'll replace it, is what I'm saying for mine. And I will lubricate that one correctly. But the idle air control valve isn't the only thing that affects idle, or at least not directly, so let's get into the next stuff. In the previous clip, whenever I said I have the idle air control valve on my car lubricated with red and tacky grease for it's mainly suspension grease, but it's a tiny ball bearing, so I am experimenting with it. My idle air control valve gets stuck open and gets stuck closed in like kind of a loop, so it's just that one bearing that is messing with my engine idle. But in the previous clip as well with the check engine light going on, that was the most perfect idle I had ever with owning my car, just that constant 900 RPM idle with having the valve unplugged. So I know my idle on my car is the idle air control valve itself. It's nothing else is nothing with my car other than just this valve being stuck open and stuck closed, which I'm going to be experimenting with how to fix and or replace the thing entirely, correctly replacing it. With the next part of the video, I have to give a shout out to NORCALCELISHOP here. He is a really great seller and one of the only sellers I trust with any Celica parts. He has a very large and vast page of a lot of parts, and you could even DM him for stuff. I've gotten a lot of parts from him, and will source, not source, yeah, source my claim or my recommendations through something like, for example, the 2ZZ ignition coils here. You could read all that later. His Instagram will be in the description, but I did get some of my important Celica parts from him. He is a really great seller. With you being a consumer, you are allowed to purchase whatever you want from whatever manufacturer or supplier, but from my personal experience, I have not had any good parts come from Amazon, partially from eBay. You have to do research on what brand of you're getting, because eBay, Amazon, Rock Auto, they're all suppliers, or they're not the manufacturers of these parts. They just supply them to you. So I went through three, not three. I went through two sets of ignition coils from Amazon. They both of them were bad because they weren't Denso, and one of them through eBay, which did last a little bit longer, but then started giving some cylinder misfires. But we're about to get into all the electronic stuff, so I'm going to be saying, I have a lot of tabs open up here. Let me show you where to actually buy your parts from. NORCALCELISHOP, Rock Auto, and that's all the tabs I have pulled open. That's where I would buy my parts. That's where I trust. That's where I know that I'm gonna get good condition, even though some of them are new, some of them are used. I would get good condition working parts that would not tell the ECU, "Hey, what's up?" Because these engines and don't really like anything besides their original manufacturers, i.e., Denso in this case. I don't think Norcal has any. Can I enlarge the image? I cannot. I don't think Norcal has any 1ZZ fuel injectors listed right now. I tried looking for some before this, but the 2ZZ ones, they don't have any cracks in them as far as I'm concerned. I don't need any 2ZZ fuel injectors. I bought the 1ZZ ones from him. He sent me the ones from a Corolla, the '03 through '08 Corolla, which they are the same. They work. The only difference actually between the blue ones and the green ones are the fuel spread, or the fuel spray. On the blue ones, it's a little bit wider, but it's still the same CC. So they work perfectly, actually. The worst case scenario, I didn't even need to. I just got some seafoam fuel injector cleaner from Walmart for $5, and I put them in there. They run just fine. I have to go back to my own Instagram page for this. This is the blue ones I was talking about, and I don't remember where I heard it from, and I could be wrong in this, but I remember reading somewhere that these ones don't crack, but it's an old fuel injector, and I don't know how true what I just said is, so whether it does or doesn't crack, I still have them in my car. They work just fine. Next on the list are spark plugs. You can get them from probably Toyota, may not really Amazon. The first set of spark plugs that I had in my car after I got my car, or the ones that I changed them to, I should say, I got Denso ones from Amazon, but they ended up being fake Denso ones, and I was able to tell due to the part number, not the part number, the little logo on the side there. I don't know if I mentioned that. Let me try to find it. I ended up replacing them with ruthenium NGK spark plugs, and they had this little logo here on the side, or not logo, this little imprint. The ones I had beforehand did not have that. Anyone on the Facebook group, if you ask about spark plugs, they'll tell you Denso Iridium or NGK Iridium, which they'll both work just fine. I don't know if, and I'm pretty sure NGK is also an original manufacturer of Toyota, but I'm not too sure on that. I know Denso is. These are the ruthenium spark plugs I got. They are $8.67 a piece, so nearly $40 for them. But let me find their page actually. Here's a little PDF of it. Where is it? NGK ruthenium HX trademark provides more complete fuel burn than other precious metal spark plugs. I didn't need to buy these ones compared to the other ones, but I wanted to. The Denso Iridium and NGK Iridium ones, though, I'm sure they work just fine. I don't have a comparison between these ones and the ruthenium ones, but I do have a comparison between the fake Denso ones that I had from Amazon, and the ruthenium ones I have now. These ruthenium ones are definitely a lot better. Also, I do buy a lot of my stuff from Rock Auto, and I know there are other manufacturers and other stores that sell these products or even similar ones. Sorry if my mic is loud. I see it's going to the red bar in OBS. Advanced Auto, AutoZone, O'Reilly's. I'm sure they have some Denso stuff listed there, but this is the cheapest and most reliable place I can find it being sold at. Next is the ignition coil. So the one on Rock Auto, the Denso branded one, I think it'll work, but my only issue with that is that they have the Denso sticker there. While we go to Norcal's page, and these ones are for the 2ZZ, but if whenever I scroll through the images here, these ones have an imprinted logo on them. You could kind of see the Toyota and part numbers there, but I think these ones will work. I haven't tested them, but they are Denso, so just make sure they're not fake Denso. For the air filter, I actually bought this one from K&N. It is a stock style air filter. I bought I think 60 to 70, but I forgot how much I paid for it. But that one, where is it? Where's the what I'm trying to find here? You can clean it every 75,000 miles. That's the first reason I got it. Second reason is the high flow air filter, and along with that, I forget where I heard it. I think it's true somewhere. Don't quote me on this. Somewhere I've read that it does increase horsepower by like 4 or 5 horsepower, but I have no idea how true that is, and that just may be the cone filter, if anything. Here are the cone filter ones for the GT and GTS. Are these both for the GT? The only difference between these two would be the angle of the port that goes into the throttle body, but it's a high flow air filter, and you could clean it out. It's lifetime air filter, so I don't have to worry about replacing it. There are other ones. Any of these ones. Let's go to the Fram one just because it has the heart next to it. This one, it'll work. I don't think you could clean it out. You could buy this at Walmart for probably the same price. I'm sure I could find one of these at Walmart in the same aisle as the oil filters. But I like this one just because I know I'll never have to replace it. And even if it does increase horsepower by a little bit. Oh, what was that smile? Oh, I'm so sorry. Better smile. Next is the mass airflow sensor. The one on my car I actually did replace because I cleaned it and it didn't get any better, so I had a feeling it was broken. I didn't actually test it, but I did buy a used one for $20 on eBay. And just as of today of recording this video, with a warm engine, if you unplug the sensor and the engine immediately stalls and dies off, then you know it's good. And my engine stalled. You can find more videos on YouTube on how to actually test the mass airflow sensor, but I tested mine. My engine stalled. My mass airflow sensor works. I don't know if Norcal has any mass airflow sensors listed or if he even sells them, but from Advanced Auto you could buy a can of mass airflow sensor cleaner, which I would actually recommend cleaning it first, because the only way it's actually bad is if it gives you a code and if you test it and the engine does not stall. That's how you would know it's actually bad. So I would recommend, if you do have a mass airflow sensor issue, clean it first. This is way easier than replacing it. And down in this toolbox here, I actually have a can of it that I used. I'm just not going to dig it out right now. And I also did change the address up here, so that way I chose the farthest store away from me that I could find, so no one gets to dox me. The next thing is the power steering pressure sensor. This one I bought off of eBay for like 13 bucks. I know I stick to Toyota's OEM manufacturers for everything electronic, but I will link it. I'll link my video of me replacing it. The reason why I got mine off of not Amazon, eBay, and I got it aftermarket was just because it sends one signal for pressure, and I'm pretty sure that's the only thing it does. I replaced mine because let me show you why actually. All right, I found it via Instagram and via my YouTube channel because I couldn't. I thought I don't know. I couldn't find it. Anyways, my Instagram. This was my old one. It was in there, but the electrical connector was gone, and I don't know why it was gone. Or is it? It's located on the back of the power steering pump. You can. I'll link my video here, but you can loosen it up and replace it. And as long as you have like a little bit of fluid in your power steering reservoir, then you should be good. It does leak a little bit of fluid, but that isn't really a bad thing. It leaks a tiny bit of fluid. I'm gonna turn off ever again. I had a very bad camera angle. Actually, let me continue with this. This is also part of the video. I will never have a bad camera angle like that ever again because I found my tripod. So video quality is about to get a little bit greater. Along with the fact that I am going to have an idler pulley replacement video soon because that's still in the mail. And you'll see why I need to replace mine whenever that gets there. But for the power steering pressure sensor, whenever I turn my steering wheel, and with the old one, my car would just get close to a stall, so I replaced it. Locate on the back of the. Do I have a good? Do I have any angle of me doing this correctly? Looks like I need for this half inch, and then a deep 19 millimeter. Very tight at all to stretch over the edge. Deep 19 millimeter socket with the extension. With a small extension. I didn't use a extension larger than this because I was almost touching the firewall, but deep 19 millimeter, small extension, half inch ratchet wrench, and you could just barely break it loose. You could try to fit a wrench in there, but this is the closest I got to even getting it, and I barely even got it with this. And I don't, it probably does have a torque spec somewhere in the repair manual, which I actually do have a PDF of the repair manual. Which I will try to link that in the. I'm linking a lot of things in the description. This is a helpful tutorial video, but I was barely able to get the power steering pressure sensor off just like this. Next is the coolant temp sensor. So one of my recent issues, which some people in the Facebook group and I think on my Instagram, I did post a photo about it. So both my thermostat was stuck open and the coolant temp sensor. Whenever I tried to pull one off of a Celica at LKQ, I took it off and it looked exactly like the one that's on mine here. That was on mine. You can get an OEM one, but I chose this one from Beck Garnley for two reasons. One, the OEM one that I could get from either Toyota dealership or Toyota dealership via eBay Motors. Those ones were between 50 and 70 bucks, and they did not actually come with this copper crush washer, which this crush washer here is vital to actually keeping it sealed. And then it is the NTK one somewhere on here. The NTK one here. This is NTK, NGK, I'm pretty sure is one of the original manufacturers for Toyota parts. This one does not come with a crush washer, which was a selling point for me. So my thermostat was stuck open, which was not allowing my engine to reach operating temperatures, or it was rarely, just like very rarely, and then it would cool back down instantly, which would mess with the fuel air ratio being sent to the ECU from how cold the coolant was. So if your temperature doesn't reach 185 average, which I have a scan tool to do that, or I think it's like the third or fourth line aiming at the gauge on the cluster. Overheating issues, underheating issues, thermostat stuck open or closed. Coolant temp sensor was reading that, but it was also with the correct information. It was not giving the ECU the correct fuel air mixture, which I could say replacing it with the Beck Riley one, it was practically night and day. It got rid of a lot of engine stutters. Like I'll get to the knock sensor a little bit in this video, but like almost felt like a lot of engine knocks were gone specifically because of this the sensor being replaced, and it feels good actually. Right here, minute 45 video. Coolant temp sensor. Placed it quite easily. Right there. Was this did I record this in 4K? I recorded in 4K, but it uploads in 1080p. But I took that same ratchet, that same 19 millimeter deep socket. I use an extension in the video, but you don't need an extension to reach it. Yeah, like this. I used an extension, but that extension wasn't necessary. Anyways, break it loose, and a little more coolant comes out than you'd think, but you could just top off the reservoir with that. It wasn't a lot, honestly, but it was a little more than I thought it would. But that sensor was replaced quite easily. Like here, I mentioned it here. So there was a tiny bit of coolant coming out, but if you have some in your reservoir, then you should be good. So like, I do be smart like that. I would also like to mention that my channel here is to inform some people who don't know much about the Celica, which I don't know everything about this car. Always learning more stuff, but this is all the information I've gathered, and this is all the information that I am choosing that I want to give to anyone else who may need it. So like and subscribe if you enjoy this content, because I'm also going to be replacing the idler pulley and motor mounts sometime before the end of the year. I want to get to the motor mounts before the end of or before the beginning of summer actually. I also have down here a low pressure line from my 2004 Toyota Celica, because the one on mine had these O-rings that go to the evaporator core. I think it is maybe evaporator core, heater core, one of the cores. This line, this one of these O-rings leaked and not good. And also there's like on my car, there's like an indent, so the line is physically damaged. So I have the low pressure line, which I'll be installing soon, which also requires this funky tool right here, which I'll link on Amazon. And then also Bag 100 oil just to lubricate the O-rings. And some shops may or may not allow you to do this, but the shop I'm going to, they're going to do an evac and recharge for my car, but after they get all the refrigerant out, they're going to allow me to replace this part on my own and then come back to recharge the refrigerant. So thank you to that shop. And who knows, maybe I'll make a parts corner video soon, because I am sitting on some stuff. Just gonna mention this on the side with the thermostat. I got this one from Eisen, I don't know how to pronounce that. They are an original manufacturer to Toyota. The thermostat is like of a different design, but I'm pretty sure it's a superseded part, which whether it's superseded or not, it works for me. It worked for my car. I needed a new thermostat. This is the thermostat I got because mine was stuck open. So out of all the belt tensioners I could have gotten, this is the one I got. There are others, but what stuff I was looking for was this little on the pulley itself. This is just a random one. I didn't want a spring tensioner for mine since the OEM one uses a hydraulic tensioner. There is this the pulley with the bolt on it. I can't enlarge this photo, but the pulley with the bolt is still there. It's just under a cover, which I was looking for one with the cover on it. And there are others with the cover on it. Can I see this photo? Like this one, for example, but then the price is too high. Also, this one had the heart next to it, so it took me a little while to decide which one to get. So the way you would know if yours is bad, it may affect your idle, but along with the reduced risk of whatever, just trying to think. Uh, Belt squeak, slippage, poor accessory performance, like your AC, your power steering, your alternator not charging, stuff for like a bad belt tensioner. You could find a lot more symptoms online for that. For mine specifically, this little, can I zoom in on this, please? Thank you. The part that you put a 19 millimeter onto to relieve stress on it, that on my car is stripped from the previous owner. I don't know how the heck you strip this thing. Maybe using a 20 millimeter and screwing it up, but I am replacing mine just because of this little stress relief point, which I did end up replacing the serpentine belts. But whenever I replaced the serpentine belts a long time ago, I took my 14 millimeter wrench, or not, I think ratcheting socket wrench, whatever you want to call it, and I tightened this to relieve tension on the serpentine belt. And even then, it took a while to feed it around all the. It took it a while to feed around the alternator because I couldn't relieve full tension on it. But I think I should be able to do this quite easily, which I also did recently get a hydraulic jack, floor jack, low profile. It's that way I could lift the motor up, because you do need to lift the motor up and disconnect one of the motor mounts to get one of the bolts out, this bolt out for it. But if you have a squeaky belt or if you have some failing accessories, that's why you would replace it. Mine works completely fine, doesn't squeak at all. It's just this piece I'm wanting to replace for future maintenance because I want to. It's fun. Oxygen sensor, upstream and downstream. Whenever I replace my exhaust, let me pull up the video for that. I replaced my exhaust, I think, don't mind me accidentally pausing the video while I'm mid-speaking, but I replaced my exhaust mid-April-ish of last year, and the oxygen sensors with mine, the front one was fine, and then the rear one had an extension or a spacer on it. One moment. Actually, I may still have it. Pulled from the parts corner in the same box that had the low pressure line, the suction line, whatever you want to call it. This dingus. The oxygen sensor still works. There's just this spacer on it because the previous exhaust system on my car was a straight pipe, so you needed this to bypass the check engine light. I think I don't even, this may be welded on there, doubt it, but like the only way I could ever get this off is like letting it soak in PB Blaster for like maybe 3 weeks straight with a constant, I think it's like a supersonic bath or whatever you call it, and then like 1,000-degree heat with two 22 millimeter wrenches going in opposite directions. I think that's the only way you could ever get this off. I had to replace it. Anyways, I chose the Denso branded ones on Rock Auto here. Another some how am I gonna phrase this? The Bosch ones are a little bit cheaper, but I've heard some people having not so good times with the Bosch ones. So wanted to mention this earlier. There are other brands like AC Delco, Bosch, and Duralast, or whatever, all those other brands out there. Those brands are the OEM manufacturers for other car companies. Then the Toyota uses Denso, Aisin, other. That's the brands they use, and you should whatever car you have, you should stick to their manufacturers or their original manufacturers. For Toyota, it's the Denso one on the official Toyota websites where you can get OEM parts like this, there are the upstream and downstream sensors for I think like 130 each. I chose to get these ones off of Rock Auto because obviously half the price and they work just all right. I'll try to find. Let me find something real quick. All right, so I couldn't find what I was looking for, but there was someone I was talking to a little while ago. Not a little while ago. Whenever I was doing this, I was using the ones off Rock Auto, and they were using the ones off of Toyota's website, and he paid like 260 for these sensors, and that's fine. You can buy your parts wherever you want to. This is where I chose to buy my parts. These ones work just fine. Though there was one issue I was having at the time. I had an evap test done, and I'm pretty sure they accidentally blew a fuse in the process of that. So whenever I got my car back from the shop, I had a check engine light for the O2 sensor circuit not working. So what I did was actually, why am I getting a Epic Games invite? Yeah. So trying to recollect my thoughts here after that Epic Games invite. It blew a fuse, which I found out the fuse was engine side fuse box. It was a 7.5 amp fuse. It controlled the circuit for both O2 sensors, but I didn't know that at the time. So I actually did buy a new front O2 sensor to replace it with. So now in my car, I have the front one new, and the upstream and downstream ones are new. Which I have the upstream one here somewhere. I forget where. I don't think I threw it away. And both of these ones from Rock Auto, they work perfectly. I replaced that fuse. The check engine light was gone. The O2 circuits were working just beautifully. Don't be afraid to purchase a product from wherever you choose to purchase it from. Just make sure you're getting the right part for your car, the right manufacturer. If you want to find good deals, you can do so. I buy some used parts here and there, like ignition coils. I bought them used from Norcal because they didn't have any cracks and they work great. For the catalytic converter, I was replacing my entire exhaust system, so I got this one from Davico, because it came with the converter and the resonator at once, and there's just the photos I have of it before installing it. I needed to replace my entire exhaust, so I replaced the entire exhaust. This is a part that more of indirectly affects your idle, but it does affect the O2 sensors, whether how do I phrase this? If your catalytic converter is used or if it's clogged, it will send different signals to the O2 sensors, which will affect your fuel air ratio, therefore your idle a little bit. I heard some people got better idle just from replacing their converter. I don't know if my idle was better or not since I didn't even have a converter before. Well, that probably doesn't indicate it got a little better. These ones aren't obviously aren't as expensive as OEM ones from Toyota, but I'm pretty sure they are also not of OEM quality. But like it will still work. It'll get the job done. And whenever either the warranty for this ends or maybe if my converter clogs within 2 to 5 years, I plan on getting a high flow one from Magnaflow. Let me bring that up actually. I bought it from eBay before, but next time I'm going to buy it through their site. And I actually bought this one before getting the bolt on one for my car. Whenever my converter gets clogged or I get the P0420 code, I'm just going to weld this one on in place. It's a high flow. Is this high flow? It's MagnaFlow. It's the OEM grade one. I'm pretty sure it's a high flow catalytic converter. It will make my exhaust a little bit louder, but that's all right. This is just the backup plan for whenever this one fails. It will fail at some point. That's kind of how a catalytic converter will work. But this one will last until it tells me it doesn't, and then I'll just get the MagnaFlow one. Whenever I replaced my Serpentine belt a few years back, I used this one from Continental. There's other brands on there. This is actually the cheapest one I was able to find on Rock Auto, and this belt works for me. It's fine. I'm not going to replace my belt when I replace my belt tensioner because like I said, the pulley itself is fine. The only reason I'm replacing it is because of the stress reliever part that you put the tool on to relieve the stress on the belt. That's the only thing. That's the only reason why I'm replacing it. But this one will work fine. If you have any failing accessories, AC, power steering, your alternator not charging, it could be the Serpentine belt. Inspect your belt. I will also be inspecting my Serpentine belt whenever replacing my tensioner, but I'm pretty sure mine is fine. With stuff like this, I would try to get an OEM one, whether from my junkyard, my local junkyard, or maybe even from Norcal. Wrong, wrong one, wrong one. I know he sold AC compressors in the past, but I don't think he has any right now. This could affect your idle if you. I don't know what specifically it being wrong with it to where it would affect your idle, but like it could put strain on the alternator and henceforth the belt system is my thought process on this. I know it's here and there it affects my idle, even though my idle control valve is kind of stuck closed, kind of. But if you have any AC issues, you could look into. What I actually did was I took some. I think UV dye. It was a certain. I put UV dye in the system with a recharge can of refrigerant to see if one that would solve any leaks, and two see where the leak is coming from, which is how I know my low suction line is bad. There's plenty of videos online for that. If you have any AC system issues, get that diagnosed properly. I This is in the list just because it does kind of affect your idle, but not as bad as the actual idle control valve being stuck open or closed. But I just thought I'd throw this in here. This one's fun. I actually almost replaced my fuel pump. So previous owner, which is my sister, she replaced the fuel pump 3 times with ones from junkyard Celicas, and I almost thought mine was bad until I did some further diagnosis. I now know my idle control valve is just the bad thing in there, and also it was before my coolant temp sensor and thermostat replaced. I thought it was the fuel pump, but if you look up this part number here on eBay, you'll get the same exact thing with the same exact photos, but this one's 76 on Rock Auto. I'm pretty sure you could get it from Toyota for I don't know how much money, but if you're gonna replace your fuel pump, replace the fuel filter with it. This entire thing is the fuel filter, which replace your fuel filter with your fuel pump to make it easier. There are actually a lot of good videos on YouTube on how to replace this, and if you look up the fuel filter for Toyota Celica on eBay, let me actually do that right now. You can find something like this, which is basically the same as this one right here. I Just like we sometimes use aftermarket oil filters, I'm pretty sure this one will work, especially if your current fuel filter is clogged. I think the OEM ones or the ones directly from Toyota are like 30 plus tax and shipping. If I were to replace my fuel filter, I would probably buy this one or one of the ones from eBay if I were to replace it. But my fuel filter and fuel pump are new within the past 5 years, and I don't have any symptoms of a failing fuel pump. Though I have seen some people have issues of fuel filter failing whenever engine reaches idling temperatures, or operating temperatures, which is why I thought my fuel pump was bad. But then I found out that it was my thermostat, my coolant temp sensor. It wasn't the fuel pump, thank goodness. Wouldn't be too bad to replace, but that just means I'd have to spend the near $100 and actually replace it. Don't really want to do that. For the Evap system, if you have like P0440, P0441, P0446, one of the most common ones, the fuel tank, you can replace your fuel tank cap with specifically an OEM one. And if you already have an OEM one, then tighten it to exactly 1 click or exactly 2 clicks, and then replug the battery. I was fighting my Evap leak for 2 to 3 years. The very first thing I replaced was the gas cap. I got an aftermarket one, and that didn't work at the time. So then I got a bunch more. Can't find the video on my Instagram to show it, but I didn't go through a bunch more gas caps. I went through that one aftermarket one and then bought a Toyota OEM one, not from here. I bought mine from eBay, and then I think it was within like the past 5 months, I tightened it to exactly 2 clicks, replugged the battery, and then my evap leak was just gone. If there are genuine evap parts that need to be replacing, then you would get certain codes for those certain issues. Make sure every single wiring harness works, good in continuity, make sure all the hard lines don't have any leaks in them. I inspected all my hard lines. I also replaced all my soft lines with some silicone hoses and new hose clamps. That didn't fix it. And I also had the charcoal canister, which OEM charcoal canister felt nice, came with the OEM valve. But after replacing nearly the entire evap system with OEM parts, it just ended up being the gas cap and just tightened it to exactly 2 clips, replugged the battery, it was gone. But that being said, if any evap parts do have any issues, replace them, and it could kind of affect. Let me think about this. If you're not getting the correct fuel vapors from your gas tank, then the incorrect amount of vapors will be going back into your throttle body and intake manifold, and it wouldn't be a complete combustion, which would indirectly affect your idle. PCV valve, fun. The PCV valve takes any excess pressure or gas from the crankcase and puts it back into the intake manifold. And I think you'll get a certain code if this clogs up. It could clog up from oil sludge because it is connected to the valve cover. But if you want, you could take off the hose with some no deal nose pliers, then loosen this with a 19 millimeter deep socket, and it does have red thread locker on it from the factory, so it will be a little hard to get out. And once you have it out, shake it, and if it rattles, then it's good. But if not, then replace it. And this one, $4. I'm pretty sure you can get it cheaper than $4, but this one, it's just a little. I'm pretty sure it's just a little ball inside there that moves around with pressure. So not an electronic part. I wouldn't buy this OEM. I would probably buy this one exactly if mine were bad, but remove the PCV valve and gently shake it. If it does not rattle, the valve is clogged or dirty, it should be replaced. A PCV valve that rattles might still need to be replaced if it's been distorted, yada yada. I was just reading the little green text here, sorry. But I'm pretty sure in some cases you could spray some WD-40 into both ends of the nozzles to clean it out if you have any WD-40. If this thing is clogged, pressure will build up inside the engine, which could probably affects the idle. I haven't had this one go bad, and I haven't even seen a bad one personally, but I do know it is one of the symptoms of a bad idle. But if there's enough built-up pressure, it'll throw specific codes. Knock sensor, it detects any knocking in your engine from any fuel combustion, and I sends a signal to the ECU to even it out. Is the best way I could phrase it. I haven't had my knock sensor go bad. It would I am pretty sure stuff like this, it would throw a very specific code, and you would have to take your intake manifold off to actually reach it and unscrew. I think this is on a 24 millimeter wrench. I don't have to replace mine. It has one little circuit, just like the power steering pressure sensor that it sends to the ECU. But with the knock sensor, I would get an OEM. I would get an OEM Toyota one for this, even if it's a used OEM Toyota one. If it does go bad somehow, then like I said, it will probably throw a very specific code. There, just like I think I mentioned this in the start of the video. Everything that could be wrong, there's always a reason for it. It doesn't just magically go wrong and then get better. Well, maybe sometimes it does, depending on the car you're driving, could magically get better. But like, there's always a reason for something saying, "Hey, check me out," you know? If you get to the point to where the ECU itself is actually bad, I don't exactly know how you would diagnose that. I don't see the ECU getting bad unless it has water damage or something, because it is in a very protective case. You can't even, if with the stock ones, I'm pretty sure you cannot tune these in any way, shape, or form. But Norcal does have some for sale, and this one's only $30, really. If you get to the point where your ECU is bad, then Norcal has some available. But I just don't see the ECU going bad at all unless it has actual damage, like physical damage. Maybe even if you're gonna open that up, it's only in there by two 10 millimeter bolts. Check the wiring harness as well, because I could see the wiring harness getting bad first before the ECU. Because Unless there's got to be a reason why it would go bad. It wouldn't just go bad. Unless I'm just the stupid one here and it does just go bad. I just have never seen it go bad in any case unless it's like even cars that do have some BCM or ECU issues. It wouldn't. In most cases for those cars, I haven't, from what I've seen at least, and I watch a lot of automotive content on YouTube. Those cars have just other like it may seem like it's the computer, but then it's just something small like the wiring harness or just like even something far away from it. Don't know how to describe what I'm trying to think, but like most of the time it's not the ECU, especially with the Celicas. It would I genuinely think it would just have to take like physical damage for it to go bad. Just like I have the Ray Bestos parking brake cables. I don't think this is an electronic thing, so I would trust the Ray Besto part with this. I forget what specific car it was, but I watched a video of a guy flipping a car, not like physically flipping it, but like repairing it to sell it. His idle issue in that car was the brake booster master cylinder combo that you can see here. He tested it by plugging with the line that went from the the power brake booster to the engine, and then the idle smoothed out, so he replaced the power brake booster. I forget what car that was specifically, but I don't think this would throw code, but more of you would have some very specific brake issues with it. But like I said at the beginning of the video, if you have specific issues, get them diagnosed. This I'm no professional, but this is I do know that this may or may not affect idle in some way, shape, or form. And this, I cannot find this piece on Rock Auto, but you can get one of these from eBay. I think this one here is 110 bucks plus tax and shipping. I'm not zooming out of the photos because it will show my personal information, and I do not want that on YouTube. If you're able to pull this from a junkyard, it may fit more than just Celicas. You could probably, I don't know the prices for it, but you could probably get for a similar price, 80 to 110. I don't know how much they cost. And that is it. That is my video essay on everything that I can think of that could affect the idle in this. If you have any actual idle issues, it'll probably be something with the combustion system or I'm trying to think, or the idle air control valve itself. It's the idle air control valve. This thing right here is very sensitive to carbon deposits after 20 years. I don't know how sensitive it actually is as a part, but like the little ball bearing door that spins open and closed, that does need to be lubricated, and the motor wouldn't go bad. And I didn't even know this motor could give a check engine light, and that was just because it was unplugged. But that is, if it does go bad, it'll probably go. That's I'm pretty sure that's the only way you would know it goes bad. It's an enclosed motor, so if you do have clean this out, get all the proper tools. Oh shoot, I'll link them in the description. Get these tools, that way you could correctly clean this without breaking any screws on there, and get the carb cleaner and get some, I think it's all-purpose oil he used in there, or sewing oil. I tried lubricating mine with engine oil, but it didn't work. Well, that's also because I didn't unmount mine. That guy had his facing vertically and poured the oil in there, and also like very deeply cleaned his out. If you need to buy a new one, get one OEM, get a used one and clean that out instead. It's not worth the 230 plus if you could just get one of these and clean it out for 100 bucks or less. And for this, you will need to undo the cooling. Back to my video here. I don't know how good of a job I did at like tutorial wise. Some people were happy with this, some guy wasn't. I did edit the description. I followed that tutorial there. And I did empty out the coolant lines, which I think I did not reuse that coolant. I probably could have filtered it out since I had coffee filters. If you are even taking the valve off, I think this will be with the two ZZs as well. If you are taking the idle air control valve off of the throttle body, you will need to drain the coolant will come out of the block unless you like plug the lines for it. But the line on the left here that goes to it would be facing this way. The line that goes from this side to the intake or somewhere in there, that line is very hard to access via hand. It's possible, but it's very difficult. I'm pretty sure I described it somewhere. I haven't done this job in a while. It's been, how long has this been? A few months. Sorry about that pause. As far as I'm aware with the idle control valve,
It's just most likely dirty. I don't see it failing at all, especially after 20 plus years, unless it's like physically damaged. The motor part or the valve part, just carb cleaner, clean it out, lubricate the ball bearings in it. This guy's video on it is really good, and it's just the tutorial I followed, except I didn't break any of the screws because I had some tools to do so. But even though he broke some of the screws getting it all off, he did on screen and in the description. He explained some of s- the screws that he had to to put it all back together, which it's very informative, and I appreciate this. Maybe just put a like on that. I liked it on my main account, but now I liked it on this one. Anyways, just this is a good video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my yap session here for everything I could think of that could directly or indirectly affect the idle on your 2000 Celica or newer or older or any Gen 7 Celica, or even some Lotuses. Any car with the 1ZZ and 2ZZ GE engines could have similar symptoms. This was to my specific car and the products that I use to make my car run the way it is. Just make sure you're getting the correct parts from the correct manufacturers for your specific vehicle. Uh, don't buy stuff from Amazon. That's my take. And stay tuned because I still have some parts here and there that I'm sitting on that I got to install. Subscribe.